Welcome everybody to the penultimate session in the MQ stream and to the last day of the conference. For those that were at the last MQ on Tuesday afternoon, I have to apologise because just as I was about to wrap up the session, my Zoom window completely froze up and I was unable to say goodbye to anyone or close it properly. And thanks to Gino for doing that for me. Right, without further ado, I'll hand over to Alison, who's going to present on Reconnect.
Thanks, Melvin.
Cheers.
Hi. So hi, everyone. Thanks for coming along. Yep, today I'm going to talk about what's new in Reconnect Enterprise version 11 and also cover what we're doing with ZOS, because that's been sort of not had a lot done to it recently. So normal disclaimer, don't believe anything I tell you, check it all out. Anything I say may change for future, yep, all that stuff. So what am I going to talk about? Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about the ZOS stuff because that's what I'm most interested in, and I hope you are too. Then we'll look at some of the enhancements that have gone out in recent fix packs. So just this is our roadmap chart. So this is, you can see that since Reconnect went out, when was it? 2008, was it? We've tried to put out every quarter a new fix pack with new function and fixes in. So there's another one due probably just before Christmas. So I'll try and cover, I'm not going to try and cover all of this. I'll just try and cover the main themes as I go. So first of all, ZOS update. What's been going on with ZOS and Broker? So we put out a statement of direction earlier this year to say that on ZOS, we're planning to offer two ways to upgrade your ACE. Well, upgrade your Broker. We're going to put out a version 10.1 of IIB, but only on ZOS, so not on any other platform, just on ZOS. This will update your binaries and prereqs for the product, and it also allows us to extend support to 2030. So if people are worrying about their IIB version 10 going out of support, this should extend the support for another 10 years. So to give you time to, well, give IBM time to think of something else. So why would you want to stay on version 10 and not move to version 11? Well, if you're not ready for a container architecture, then you might want to stay on version 10 to save the disruption of having to change. But we also put out in the statement of direction that we now do support ACE version 11 on ZOS. Finally, we've made it to ZOS, which I love because I supported version 1 of, it wasn't Broker, what was it, MQSI back in, can't remember when, and that was the ZOS product. So I'm very happy it's come back to ZOS. So yes, we're going to be doing version 11 on ZOS using the Zcx feature. So what is Zcx? I don't know if anybody went to the earlier session. I think my invitation got lost, but looking at the foils, it looked interesting. And there they explained what Zcx is. So in case everybody's already seen that, I won't go into massive detail here. But basically, Zcx is a way to run Docker in your ZOS proper. So it's not on ZLinux, you don't need IFLs, you don't need anything clever. This is running Docker inside a cut down version of Ubuntu, running as an address space started task on ZOS. So this is fantastic. This is bringing Docker and the whole Docker ecosystem to ZOS. So you can run, well, oh, why did that change? Sorry, changed automatically. So you can run any S390X architecture on your ZOS. Fantastic. So if you want to maybe run your etcd server, if you put it on ZOS, then you've got other ZOS qualities of service. You've got the like scalability, replication, performance, security, but you can run it as if you were running it on any other platform, just it's on ZOS. And so your Zcx sits there. Oh, where's my pointer? there it is, sits there, just another address space on your LPAR, along with your kicks and your IIB and your MQ. And from the way they've set it up, it's got same host networking, so you can get your sort of cross-memory networking speed. So this would be a good use case. But what Wayne thought was, since you can run all that on Zcx, why don't we put ACE version 11 on there? We haven't been releasing it on ZOS because the whole point of version 11 was it gave you containerization. There was no container architecture on ZOS. But now here we have a container architecture on ZOS. So let's ship version 11. So that's what we've done. So why would you want to ship? Why would you want to run run ACE on ZOS? Well, if you don't already run, I'm sorry, I can't see anyone, so I can't ask to see where you run already. But if you're running on distributed platforms, you might want to bring ACE back onto ZOS. So you get your ZOS qualities of service, of course. And you might want to consolidate your integration processing. So if you're brokers, if you're the integration servers now, if your message flows in your integration servers are running running flows that come from, say, kicks or DB2 on ZOS, why not run your integration processing there on your mainframe with those? So you don't get the network latency, your data doesn't have to leave the platform, and like I keep banging on, you get the qualities of service, scalability and such for your application, for your integration servers as well. And if you already run IIB, why would you want to upgrade to ACE? Well, you probably wouldn't want to upgrade all your flows because we don't have, for example, RRS support in Zcx at the moment. But you could see which flows were suitable and a little bit more on that later, and maybe move MIPS heavy flows onto Zcx, because I know it's seen as quite an expensive option to run ACE on ZOS at the moment. But workloads that run on Zcx are zip eligible. And depending on what you're doing in your workload, they say you can get up to 98% zip offload, but typical workloads seem to be around 95%. But still, that's 95% free processing. So that would save quite a lot of money, especially if it was a MIPS heavy flow. And obviously staying on ZOS means that you keep operational control by your ZOS sysprogs and the people who already know how broker and integration works. And obviously you'll be able to manage it with your like kicks and all the places that are actually creating the data it's processing. So there's some use cases. I've hidden that foil because I didn't think I had time for them all, but if you look at the deck, there's some more use cases for why you'd want to run ACE on Zcx. So now I've convinced everyone you want to do this. How exactly do you do it? Well, from Fixpack 8, so that was beginning of the year, I think. Can't remember anyway. From Fixpack 8, we've said we support running the ZLinux ACE product on Zcx. This is Zcx themselves say if it runs on ZLinux, it should run on Zcx. So we tried it out, and yep, it just worked. So that's supported now. So if you just want to run in a Docker container and administer it like any other Docker container, this is what you can choose to do. So if you're maybe running on ZLinux already, you can simply move it across, stand up a Zcx instance or several Zcx instances, and run your integration servers on Zcx. With the caveat that there's no, well, as far as I know, there's no Kubernetes or OpenShift yet, but these are in plan. Kubernetes was meant to come this summer, but I'm not sure it did. I believe OpenShift's due for the beginning of next year, but don't quote me on that. So at the moment, though you can administer it like any other Docker container, Docker Swarm's really the only option on Zcx at the moment. But in the near future, you should have Kubernetes OpenShift coming up. But what about traditional people who already run IIB on ZOS and their automation set up, or maybe their senior sysprog, I don't know, are set up to want to use JCL and to expect messages to appear in the ZOS console, or the standard ways of doing things on ZOS. If they migrate to ACE on Zcx, that's going to mean they have to rewrite all their automation and all their processing. So if you've got your processing that expects DB2 to come up, then MQ, then ACE, you're going to have to do different things to fit that into, oh, but by the way, I'm starting ACE on a Docker container. So Fixpack 10, we've shipped some code that runs on ZOS only. And this is available from, no, it's not ShopC, Passport Advantage. And this will allow you to administer ACE running in a Docker container in Zcx, but by using JCL or a started task. So it'll look a bit more from the outside like the version 10 product and maybe fit in better with customer automation. So though everything, I don't know if you noticed, everything's going at ZOSMF install at the moment. That's the way we've got to put out new code. So you use the ZOSMF to install it. But under the covers, this drives an SMPE install. So it's a proper ZOS product, SMPE installed, and that's how you'll do updates. And like I say, we offer two methods, JCL or using console commands in a started task. Talking to different groups of customers, different customers wanted different ways of doing it. So that's why we've offered two methods. And I've got a link if you get the foils to the info center, knowledge center, where it's got all the more information on how to set it up and how it works. Right, so looking at the JCL method, everything, I don't know if you know about, sorry, I can't ask, I can't see anyone, but on the ZOS, certainly you set up BIPEMs that are the environment variables to tell your broker, well, to tell your broker what it is and what to do. So for the Zcx way of doing things, you set up an environmental variables file, or several files concatenated. It's just an env, so however you want to do it. And this tells the product things like the IP address of your Zcx, the user ID you want to use on it, depending on what you're doing, the image name, the name of your broker, the name of your integration server, the ports you want to use, all information like that. So that's all stored in, it can be on Unix system services, or it can be just PDSE. And then you run your JCL, we ship sample JCL to do all sorts of things. And that reads these environment variables and then uses BPX batch to run some Unix system services scripts that we ship. These are bash scripts, so you need bash installed. And that will SSH onto your Zcx instance and then issue the Docker commands or the Unix commands that it needs to do in order to do whatever you want it to do. So we ship JCL to start your integration server. You can use it to issue commands onto the integration server to stop your integration server and to transfer files to and from your integration server. So if you want to maybe put a bar file on or take off script files, trace files or something, we ship JCL to do that too. We also ship JCL to build the image because I don't know, sorry if you know Docker, but for Docker, instead of like compiling an application, you build an image and that's what runs on Docker. Well, it's not really like that. But anyway, the image, you can build your own. You can use IBM ships on the OT4i. We ship an ACE Docker version that you can run, or you can use that to build your own, or you can build your own if you already have your ACE container. Just make sure it's built for S390X. So we ship JCL either to do a Docker load if you've got an existing image, or we've got a sample Docker file and we've got JCL that you can run in order to build the image that you then run. So yes, you can build the image or load it, then you can administer the ACE server. We also have JCL to issue some Docker commands to do debugging that you need, and also to do a Docker system prune. So if your instance is getting full up, you can prune all the stuff you don't need. So that's what we offer at the moment, just to save anyone having to manually SSH onto a Zcx instance and issue Docker commands. They can just submit JCL. So that should hopefully make it easier for people's automation. Here you can see this is an SSH key for Zcx. So how we do it is you specify the user ID that you want to use for Zcx, so what front you've set up your users. And then we use SSH keys for accessing the ZCX instance proper. So this means that whoever runs the JCL needs access to an SSH key for ZCX. So this is fine, but you might not want people who are just wanting to transfer a bar file and do a deploy or something to have access to the ZCX instance itself. So we also, if you're using our build processing in our Docker file, ship a version of ACE container that has SSHD running on it too. We provide a way for you to put a key in there. So instead of having to have the key for this whole ZCX instance, you just have the key for your integration server. And then when you issue commands like putting and getting files or issuing command like MQSI commands, you go straight into the ACE container and you don't need to have access to ZCX itself. So depending on your security requirements, you might choose to do that. There's something else I was meant to mention there. Oh yes, though I'm talking about using JCL to issue commands, you don't have to use JCL. I mean, once you've got your ACE instance running, this is an integration server. So you can use the toolkit, you can use the web UI, REST API. How else can we do it? All the ways you would talk to any other integration server, you can talk to this integration server. You just need to remember it. Well, you just need to use the IP address of the ZCX instance. So yes, though I'm talking about using JCL to issue commands, that's just one option if that's what your automation needs. If you're doing it a different way, you don't need to use JCL. So hopefully that's explained the JCL way of doing things. And the other way I mentioned was console commands. Talking to various customers, some of them would rather have started tasks and use console commands to talk to their integration server. So here it's we've still got the environment files same as before. In fact, it runs the same script, so you need the same information. And this time when you submit the JCL, it starts up a simple C++ console listener task. And the console listener task does run the scripts under the covers, and the same processing happens. But this time, the console listener obviously takes console commands. So if you want to issue your command, you can just do the modify. When you start up the console listener's task, under the covers, it starts your Docker instance. And then when you stop the console listener task, it'll stop your Docker instance, sorry, your Docker container. And also it'll optionally delete that container. So it depends whether you're doing, the full containerization, start a server, throw it away, whether you're keeping your server and you want to restart it again. So we support both those ways of running. Oh yes, this also, this writes the bit messages to the console, the proper ZOS console. So as your ACE integration server writes its log messages to the to its log, we read that and write it out to the ZOS console proper. So if you've got automation waiting to check that it came up or looking for messages that it's having trouble or that it's going down, hopefully that should fit in with your existing automation too. So that's a quick look at how ACE on ZCX works, and also mentioning about the version 10 product. So are there any questions on that, or shall I move on? So I'm scared to come out of here and go into the chat. I'll assume there aren't any questions and I'll move on.
No, Alison, there's nothing in the chat at the moment.
Oh, thanks, Melvin. Okay, so I'll stop talking about ZOS only at the moment, and I'll go on to changes, well, some of the changes we've made in recent fixpacks. So first, this is GSE. I'm going to talk about ACE and MQ. So we've got the ACE MQ endpoint policy that came out. Sorry, I can't remember when that came in, but we've had that for a while now. Now I wrote down something about this I couldn't forget. No, I don't know. Anyway, so this is the MQ endpoint policy. And so you can use this to take the information about your connections to a queue manager. And then you can use this either on the MQ input, output, reply, or the MQ nodes, or you can set it as the default policy for your integration server, which means then you haven't specified anything anywhere else. this will be the connections it uses. So you define your policy. You have to say what sort of a connection, so you can be a server connection, a client, or you can use the CCDT table if that's what you want to do. Then you fill in the appropriate information depending on what sort of a connection it was. And then you can use this policy. Like I say, you can, when you define your MQ nodes, you can add it there, or you can have it on your integration server. So this isn't new to version 10, but for version 10, we have added some extra support for the various MQ high availability scenarios. So we've added support for using replicated data queue managers. So this is a Linux thing. Sorry, I don't know if you already know this stuff, but this is when you've got your 3 Linux queue managers all running together for high availability with failover and such. So we've added support, so now you can use ACE to talk to these. You need to install ACE on each of those Linux boxes, and then you configure it to use the same volumes as MQ. So when you get the failover, you get your data replication too. So your data's all there ready to go. And then obviously you have to install it on each. And we've also got support for using queues in an IBM MQ uniform cluster. Now, I was new to uniform clusters. It seems to me it's a lot like the ZOS queue sharing group idea, that you can have several, but it's not on ZOS, sorry, but you can have several queue managers in a uniform cluster. And then your application can talk to any of these queue managers without worrying about exactly which queue manager it is. And you've been able to use this before version 10 with ACE, but we've just tried to make it a bit easier. So you can use, I'll just go back to the previous 4, because you set it all up in the CCDT table, but we've added this client reconnect option. Now this can be, I wrote that down. So it can be default, enabled, disabled, or the queue manager. So this is when we issue the, so this is for client only. So this is when we issue the connex into the application for your unified cluster. It says whether it's going to reconnect to that queue manager or not, the options. So we've allowed you to say that there. So this is whether it will automatically attempt to reconnect if the queue manager's connection's lost, if it's part of one of these uniform clusters. And there'll probably going to be more support for unified clusters in the future. At the moment, you can only connect to one application name at a time, which containerization microservices, that's possibly what you're doing. But if you've got like an Uber integration server that might want to talk to more than one, that could be something we could look at an enhancement in the future. So that's the MQ changes. Now I'm going to look at ODM. Where did I write that down? Here we go. So we've been enhancing support for ODM in the last few releases, well, last few fix packs. So basically with ODM, you can use ODM, so you can run your ODM business rules from a message flow. So you can define your business rules using ODM without having to write them in code and such. And then you can use your message flow just to call out and run those. So, oh, sorry, can you still see me? Am I still there? Oh no, that's right, it's up there now. Oh, sorry. So yes, you define an ODM server policy, and then you can use that. Now we've upgraded it. You can either talk to a running rule execution server, or you can talk to a locally stored rule set archive. So you don't need to be live talking to the execution server anymore. Also, you can choose when the rule set gets compiled by the rule set engine. So here are the options. So you can have on first message or on flow start. So if you set on flow message, on first message, this means it doesn't compile until it receives the first message for that rule set. So that means when you start up, you don't get this huge bunch of compiles that could slow your server startup. But it does mean that the first message could take a long time. So you've also got the other option of on flow start, which means obviously it gets compiled when the flow starts, but that means that it can delay the starting of your flow. So it's just what works best with your infrastructure. And we've also set up the rule set refresh. So if you change your rule sets, when will your flows start actually using the new version? So we've got 3 options here: refresh mode, interval, and update strategy. So you can do it manually, or you can set it to polling. And then if you're setting it to polling, it'll say how often it goes out and checks as things changed. And then you've also got, oh, sorry, the default there's 10 minutes, as you can see. And then you've also got if a refresh is found and you're doing it by polling, when will that refresh actually take effect? You can have immediately here, or you can have when ready. So immediately means all the flows get paused, they're recompiled, and then the flows start off again. Or you can have when ready, which means your flows, it sort of gets compiled in the background, and your flows will start to use it as they come, as it gets compiled and as it becomes available. But that does mean that if you've got several integration servers running, you might find, depending on how long it takes them to compile and when they find it, you might find that some of them are running the old version and some are running the new version just briefly whilst they all finish compiling it. So that's why we've got the options there. So that's the server policy. Oh. So how would you actually do it? We've got added now an ODM rules message flow node. So we've added new nodes. So here you can use, well, you can either use Java compute node or you can use the ODM rules message flow itself. And as I said, you use this to run business rules as part of a flow. So to do that, having set up the server policy that I mentioned before, you can set that up. And then we've got a configuration wizard in our toolkit, and that allows you to select the rule set. And also you can then use mapping between the rule set parameters and the ACE logical tree. So to map the message to the rule set, or vice versa for it to come back, I guess. And you can configure this for the rule set. You can configure it to either use a specific version of the rule set, or you can set it to use the latest version. So if this is tied to a specific version, you can do that depending on how you do it. The other way to do this, so you can still run your rule set engine rule set. You can run that using Java Compute Node if you'd rather do it in Java. When you do that, when you're using the toolkit, we've got a new wizard, a process via operational decision manager rule set wizard. So when you define your Java node, you say this is what it is, and then you can use that to query the available rule sets in the server or presumably on the archive. Select the rule set, and then this will generate you your Java code with the information about the rule and how to call it. And again, like you could for the specific ODM flow node, you can also set either a specific version of the rule set, or you should use the latest version here, depending on what's most suitable, if you're tied to a version or not. So for the admin log, statistics. Yes, so we also now report statistics for your ODM rule sets. And we have a summary, and then we have one for each rule set that has been used since this integration started up. So if it's not been used, you won't have any statistics for it yet. So for each rule set that has been used, you get its own statistics record, and this will tell how many successful executions, how many failed executions, and how many rules matched. So this should give you a bit of information on what's been going on in that ACE and whether your messages aren't matching and such. So that's on ODM resource statistics. I'll just go on. So admin log. Gosh, it's weird doing this. I'm just presenting to a wall. Sorry about this. Okay, so admin log. So for a while, we've had the activity log in ACE, where you can get a log of what activity has been going on. But here we've got one for administration commands. So it doesn't matter how the command was issued. It could be an MQSI command through the toolkit, the REST API. How else could you do it? Web UI. However, an administration command is issued, this will log it, and it logs it for each integration node if you're using nodes, or just for the integration server if it's a standalone integration server. This is enabled by default, though I'll show you in a couple of falls time if for whatever reason you don't want it, you can turn it off. Yes, and this will this allows you to see what administration has been going on in your administration commands have been issued. So you can view the data in the web user interface. I'll show you that in the next foil. There's a tab to show you sort of live what's been going on. You can also use the admin REST API to ask for this information. But you can also choose to write to a file. So if you need an audit log of the administration activity that's been going on, you can configure it to write to a file, and then that information will be available offline for future audits and such. And also, oh yes, if you're using your standalone integration server, you can get that to write to the console if you're getting the messages and stuff from there. So that's I've got the defaults written down somewhere. Sorry, I haven't got the defaults. Maybe that's the next file. So that's the options. So here's an example. If you're looking through, if you want to know what's just happened, why has everything stopped working, you can use the admin log tab here. It's a new tab on our web user interface, and that'll show you the more recent things. So here I've just done a deploy of a sample application. You can see that the application got created and then it started up the message flows. Oh, actually, I must have deployed a bar. So, but it'll also show you if people have been making changes to, well, anything, any admin command that's gone in. And this is how you configure it. So if you want to write it out for future auditing, like historical, you just put the log, the file, set the file log to true, and you can say, configure how many logs and the size of the log, and so you don't just run out of space. And this is how, if you've got a standalone integration server, you can get them to write the admin log records to the console, to the standard out. And if you wanted to turn it off, that's where you turn it off. But like I say, now from FixPack 10, it's defaulting to on, but you can turn it off if you want to. So that's a look at that. Now, Transformation Advisor. Got that written down somewhere. So I don't know if people have used Transformation Advisor. Originally, this was written, it's a tool, and a cloud tool, and originally it was written for people who are running a web server application server on-prem to see what applications would be suitable to moving onto a cloud environment, and also advise them if you did want to move onto a cloud environment, what changes you'd need to make. And it pulls out information like database connections and queue managers and things like that. But now you can use it for more than just WAS applications. So yes, it's to help you modernize your middleware applications. And of course, in ACE, we can use it to determine the container readiness of our ACE applications. So generally, in order to use the Transformation Advisor, you download the tool, and then you run a custom data collector on whatever application, like for WAS or whatever that you want to run it on. And then you'd upload your results to Transformation Advisor, and it will give you a detailed analysis, give you your reports, what you need to do, whether it's suitable, all that information. So with ACE, we actually ship the TA data collector. We actually ship the command as part of the product. And it's got some options. You'd specify ACE as the custom thing. So you do TA data collector ACE, and then whatever you wanted to do. So you can use it just to collect the data, to assess the data, to collect, assess data, and generate the reports for what you'd need to do. And also you can use report to just generate it. So we've got all it's the standard command. And you can run this against your version 10 or your version 11 integration nodes or integration server. And you can also run it against the deployable bar file. And you can also, you could maybe put several bars into a bar that gets scanned. So you wouldn't have to be the bar you've got, if you see what I mean. If you've got several bars for one server, you could do it that way. If you're running it against the bar, you just build the bar and you run it. But if you want to run it against an integration node, you use the MQSI backup broker command. So you run a backup, and then you run it against the file that produces, rather than against a live integration server. So as I started off talking about moving from IIB version 10 on ZOS to version 11 ACE in a containerized architecture, this might be a very useful tool to see which flows, message flows, are suitable for moving onto version 11 in Zcx. And it was useful for other things too. So that's, gosh, I've whizzed through this. That's all the stuff I've really got foils on. But having a look at here, what else can we talk about? Oh, enhanced authentication in the WUI. So I showed you the web user interface. And you can log on if you've got security set up. You can log on using LDAP. We've had LDAP. When did that come in? LDAP. Oh, here we go. Since FixPack 4. So you can use LDAP, or you can use just normal password, file password user ID to secure your web user interface. And then you can try and log on, but because it's a password, people have been failing audits. So what we've done is we've made it, what are they called? Somewhere. Here we go. So we've got 3 new options now. You can configure in your server.conf.yaml, and that gives you a maximum attempt somebody can make with a failed password, the sort of time period through which you can make your these attempts before it decides to lock you out, and then the period of time that you'll be locked out for. So if somebody puts in, say, 10 bad passwords, they'll get locked out for however long. And when they put in the last wrong password, instead of just being told no, wrong password, it'll actually tell you that that your account has been locked, so they know what's going on. Well, that's all I prepared. Does anybody have any questions?
There are no questions at the moment.
Oh, excellent. Well, okay. Well, thank you very much. So I've talked about ZOS, where we're going with ZOS, and then some of the more recent FixPack enhancements that we've made. So thank you very much. Please submit your feedback. Thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, if you'd like to email me, do go ahead.
Thank you very much, Alison.
Thanks, Melvin.
That was an excellent presentation. The next MQ session is at 3 o'clock, where Gwydion will be talking about MQ Internet Pass-Through. And with that, I shall say goodbye and have a good rest of conference. Thank you again, Alison.
Thank you.
That's
Bye.
great. Bye now.